Hello there, my name's Heather Donnelly, and today I'm just going to show you how we're going to teach Skyler, who is only 4 months old, how to start the basics of tracking. Now, tracking tends to be in working trials as one of the key exercises, and also the UK Tracking Dog Association, which consists of a series of 5 tracks. And today we're just going to show you how to start with the puppy and any beginner dog. So the first thing you need to do is to get them interested in either a food or a toy. With the food, I put the food in something like this. It's like a little pill pot. Ideally, if you can put a hole in the top so they know the food's there. Sometimes I use liver, which isn't visible, but if the dog's having a bit of trouble, I start off with using visible treats. They're quite small, they're about thumb size, but they need to be the size according to the length of the grass. We're using my back garden here, which you can do to get going, but as the tracks progress and get longer, then you need to start using larger fields. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do with Skyler is get her interested in some food. So rustling bags usually a good indicator to get you started. Put the treats into here, and then we're just going to drop the pot. Oh, what you got here? Oh, good girl, good girl. So all we're letting her know at the moment really is that there's treats coming to the pot, because this is going to be the thing that we put at the end of the track. So we need them to know that there will be something they're going out to find. The other equipment we need at the moment, we've just got a little harness on her, but you can start off with a flat collar and a fairly long lead. The other equipment, you need a starter pole, or you can use a garden cane, anything really which has got a sharp end. Okay, now what's important about this is, even if you start in your garden, is that the ground that you use, you haven't been out training your other dogs a few minutes beforehand, so it needs to be what we call unfouled land. But if I wanted to come and train tomorrow, then that would be fine, so I can start where I'm starting here. Okay, so you either tie your dog up on a stake or tie it to a tree. Ideally, if you've got a helper, then they can hold the dog. I don't actually like to tell the dog to wait or stay. I like the enthusiasm, but it's just to hold them steady while you get a chance to lay the track. How we start the dog is to get them interested in the ground area by a nice tasty treat. So they need to see that it's actually just here, which she knows is here already. There we are. So it's just out of reach, but she knows it's there. There we go. Oh, go, go. And we need to do what I call toes to heels. And I'm crushing the grass and putting a treat probably only about 1 foot pace apart. And then when we get to the end, we put in the pole and place down our pot. I also put another treat there, one because I know they're going to nudge it and I will be able to hear that they're there. And I take 1 large step out so that I've broken the scent. So 1 large step out and then walk back to the dog. And then we're going to point at the first treat and then tell the dog to track. Okay, track. Oh, good girl, track. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. I give them a couple of seconds to try and walk forward on their own. Good girl. If they don't get the idea after about the count of 2 and look at me like she has there, I'll point at another piece. Track. Good girl. And track. Good girl. And track. Good girlie. What we got here? Good girl. And then I rush to the pole, show them the food pot, and they have a treat out of that one as well. Good girl. Okay, what's important about this, there's not very much wind here today, but normally you want the wind to get them going, blowing into your face, which is what we call into the wind tracking. partly because, like little Skyler here, she wasn't aware the other treats were there. She's definitely looking for them now. But the wind blowing her face, she would have smelt the next treat, so she would have gone on her own, which is quite important that they make that first very important step on their own. Okay, so now we're going to do another track with Skyler so that we get some repetition, give her a bit more idea of what she's going to be doing. Now I've moved further up the track because the ground we used before is now fouled, so we want to be able to make a new track. So again, we're going to get interest in the first footstep. There she goes. Oh, good girl. Yes, good girl. And again, walk toes to heels, making a continuous trail. I don't scuff too much because that actually releases too much smell. And I don't go out very far because I want, ideally, a focus on the pole. So eventually the pole will mean something, i.e. that is where the tasty food pot is, and there's more reward in there. Ideally, if you can, I put different types of food in the pot to the ones on the track because it actually adds its little bit more interest. Return to your dog. Then we tell her to track by pointing at the first piece of food. Track, good girl, good girl. Good girl, good girl. I'm not bothered about them walking back down it. Although we want forward movement, she's just looking for them. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Yes, good girl. Very good girl. Another treat. Whoa, clever little dog. Very good. Okay, now if your dog is more into the toy rather than the treats, although I do prefer the treats, it does have advantages later on in terms of accuracy with tracking, then you have the dog's favourite toy. Normally, again, the dog is tied up here. So again, you want the focus down onto the ground. So we're going to tease the dog here. And similarly, we're going to lay the track, again, heads, toes to heels. There's the toy just behind me. I'm going to walk like this, and you see the toy disappearing with me along the line of track. Not too far to start with. We want more focus in the pole. And the toy, we're going to leave at the pole. Bear it the best you can. And again, take the all-important big step out to the side. Show them to the point of the track, but don't worry if they just shoot to the pole. At the moment, all we're trying to do is get interest in the pole. So the dog will shoot towards the pole to find his toy, have a quick game with the dog, and then set it up ready for another track. What we found with training Skyler, and some dogs do this, especially dogs who've been trained using the clicker for a behaviour, they have the treat. I put several treats down on the line of track. So little Skyler actually ate one treat and then asked me what to do next. I did restart her by pointing at the next piece of food, and I usually wait to the count of 2 before I restart the dog. It's important that the dog takes those important steps on its own. We're trying to teach independence. Tracking is the dog taking the decisions, although later on you do very much go out as a team. Also with Skyler, she actually came slightly off the track, but the food there is to help her to get back on the track. Now a lot of dogs will do that according to the wind. It's not particularly windy today, but there's always a wee bit of breeze. So she was using the wind to help her, but tracking is all about following ground scent as opposed to air scent. This is why we're putting the food down. The food was telling her to get back on the line of the track. So at the moment we are actually laying the food treats roughly about footprint apart. We begin when the dog's getting the idea to widen the spacing in between the food treats. Now as we do this, the dog, as it's going forward, is actually tracking in between the small pieces of food. That is the point that the dog is actually tracking. With young puppies, Skyler's only about 4 months old, I would probably only do 3 short little sessions. The next day, I might actually do another 2 to 3 sessions that day if she's keen. It's always very important to leave the session where you know the dog wants to do more. When the dog is older and as you begin to progress, I tend to do 3 days in a row of maybe 3 to 4 short tracks, and I always allow them to have a couple of days off to consolidate their learning. When I go back to training them, I often go back a couple of stages to help the dog. What we're teaching here, which is tracking towards the pole, this is known as the walk-in, and anything beyond the pole later will become the track. The track will actually go straight on, can go to the left or it can go to the right, and you won't actually know that when you turn up to your competition. So this is the walk-in, which I then use later as what I call a training leg. So if I want to introduce anything new, I would always incorporate it on this very vital training leg. Now, in the early days, the dogs and young dogs and the puppies are watching me lay the track, but later on we do something called a blind track. So I then would leave the dog in the car, lay again a very straightforward track, get the dog out the car to see in terms of how much it has learned by going to its special field. I have my tracking line and my harness, and it sees the pole. Has it learned what the tracking game is? Sometimes people get a bit frustrated in that the dog doesn't actually perform so well as it did the day before, but actually I always think that is the time they learn more, so don't become too despondent. And what is very key is if they do happen to get stuck on something, go back to the beginning, make it easy, keep it fun, and only go at training when you feel in sort of quite a positive mood.